Elias was a bright-eyed boy who entered the world with a gentle smile and a quiet curiosity. From the very beginning, it was clear that life would be a little different for him. Born with Down syndrome, Elias faced challenges that other children didn't notice. Simple things like holding a pencil the right way or tying his shoes were harder for him. His parents loved him endlessly, but even they sometimes worried about how the world would treat him. At home, Elias's days were filled with warmth and laughter, yet the outside world was not always kind. Neighbors would offer awkward smiles, and strangers sometimes whispered. At school, the situation could be tougher. Children didn't always understand why Elias moved or spoke differently. Some would laugh when he struggled to follow instructions, or when his words came out slower than theirs. Others were simply curious, staring at him with wide eyes, unsure of how to act. Elias noticed the laughter, though he didn't always understand it. He would look around, trying to see what was funny, and then shrug, a small frown on his face. It hurt him at times, but he learned to keep going. Inside him there was a spark, a small flame of hope that no teasing could extinguish. He loved life, and he had a special way of seeing it that was different from everyone else. Music became Elias's first escape. It started one quiet afternoon when he wandered into the living room, where an old piano sat covered in dust. It had belonged to his grandmother, who had passed away years before, but nobody had played it for a long time. Elias ran his small fingers over the keys, and though the sounds were jumbled and uneven, something magical stirred inside him. The notes made him feel happy in a way he hadn't felt before. He didn't know the names of the notes or how to read sheet music. He only knew that pressing the keys made sounds that resonated with him. Sometimes he would press 2 or 3 keys together and listen to how the sounds blended. He would hum along, creating his own little songs. His parents noticed him spending hours at the piano, and instead of discouraging him, they encouraged his curiosity. They knew that something special was growing inside their son. Elias's first lessons were simple. His mother would sit beside him and show him how to play a few basic tunes. His father would clap along, smiling when Elias got a note right. The process was slow. Some days, Elias would forget the sequence of notes and become frustrated. Other days, he would play a melody that sounded surprisingly good, bringing smiles to his parents' faces. Each success, no matter how small, was a victory. School, however, continued to be difficult. Other children didn't see Elias's determination. They only saw the differences. They laughed when he mispronounced words, stumbled while walking, or took longer to complete assignments. Elias would sometimes hide his face in his hands, feeling a deep ache of confusion and sadness. Yet whenever he returned home, the piano awaited him, forgiving and patient. The keys never laughed at him. The music was his friend, steady and loyal. Elias also had a way of noticing small details that others overlooked. He could hear the rhythm in everyday life, the tapping of rain against the window, the hum of the refrigerator, the footsteps of people passing by. These sounds fascinated him. When he sat at the piano, he tried to recreate those rhythms, transforming ordinary noises into melodies that only he could imagine. Music became more than just notes. It became his voice, a way to communicate feelings he didn't yet have the words for. One afternoon, as the golden sun streamed through the windows, Elias's mother found him sitting at the piano, eyes closed, completely absorbed in his music. The notes were uneven, but there was a flow to them, a beauty that made her heart swell. She realized in that moment that Elias wasn't just playing the piano. He was expressing himself in a language that transcended words. Every press of a key was a small declaration of his spirit, a way of saying, "I am here. I have something to share." Encouraged by his parents, Elias began to spend more time with the piano each day. His fingers grew more confident, and though mistakes were still frequent, he learned to experiment with sound. Sometimes he would play a key too hard, producing a loud, jarring note. Other times he would press a key too softly, barely making a sound. Each attempt, whether it was perfect or flawed, was part of his learning. His parents never criticized him. They celebrated his curiosity and perseverance. In school, Elias's differences continued to stand out, and the laughter persisted. During recess, when other children ran and played games, Elias would wander to the edge of the playground. He liked to watch clouds drift across the sky or listen to birds chirping in the trees. Some children noticed and teased him for sitting alone, but Elias didn't mind. He was learning patience and observation, skills that would later help him in music. He saw patterns in the world that others missed, rhythms in movement and harmonies in sounds. These observations became the building blocks of his growing talent. One day, a new music teacher came to Elias's school. She was kind, patient, and curious about all her students. When she noticed Elias humming a tune quietly during class, she knelt beside him and asked if he could play it on the piano. Elias's small fingers danced over the keys, producing a melody that was simple but full of feeling. The teacher's eyes widened in surprise. She had never heard a child play with such natural expression, especially one who faced challenges every day. Word of Elias's musical ability began to spread slowly. Other teachers started watching him during music lessons, noticing how he could remember tunes quickly and play with emotion. Some students began to look at him differently, realizing that the boy they once laughed at had a remarkable gift. Though the road was still difficult, Elias's music started to create bridges where laughter and misunderstanding once existed. Elias's parents also noticed something profound happening. The piano had become more than a pastime. It was shaping his confidence. He walked taller, spoke more clearly, and smiled more often. The music gave him a sense of control over his world. No longer did he feel entirely at the mercy of the laughter or the stares. Each note he played was a declaration of his own identity, a statement that he could shine in his own way. Despite the progress, there were still moments of struggle. Some days Elias would come home in tears, frustrated by the teasing at school. Other days he would pound on the piano keys in anger when a melody didn't come out the way he imagined. His parents learned to guide him through these emotions, reminding him that mistakes were part of learning and that perseverance was more important than perfection. The love and patience of his family created a safe space where Elias could grow. They didn't push him to meet anyone else's expectations. They encouraged him to follow his own passion. Slowly, he began to understand that the world might not always be kind, but there were people who believed in him and who loved him unconditionally. The piano became a sanctuary, a place where he could express his joy, his frustration, and his dreams. By the end of his early childhood, Elias had spent countless hours at the piano. Each time he played, he discovered something new, a harmony in a sequence of notes, a rhythm in a simple tune, or an emotion he could capture through music. The boy who had once been laughed at, who had struggled to fit in, was now creating moments of beauty that others could feel, even if they didn't yet understand. Elias's journey was just beginning, but the foundation was clear. Despite the laughter and the challenges, he had found a way to shine. His piano was not just an instrument, it was a key to his confidence, a bridge to connection, and a window into a world that could finally see his extraordinary potential. The early struggles had shaped him, but they had not defined him. Laughter and misunderstanding were present, but so was resilience, curiosity, and a growing talent that would soon leave the world speechless. And as Elias continued to press the keys day after day, he was writing the first notes of a story that would inspire everyone who encountered him. As Elias grew older, his love for the piano became stronger. The keys no longer felt strange beneath his fingers. Each time he played, he felt a sense of calm and happiness that nothing else could give him. What had started as random pressing of notes had slowly begun to form into actual music. Even if he didn't know the names of the chords or the correct rhythm, he had a natural sense of melody that amazed anyone who listened closely. His parents noticed the change and wanted to help him grow. They enrolled him in a local music class, hoping he could learn more about technique and structure. At first, it was not easy. The classroom was filled with children who could read sheet music, count beats perfectly, and move quickly through exercises. Elias struggled to keep up. Sometimes he would forget which note to play or lose his place in the rhythm. Other children would whisper, giggle, or even roll their eyes when he made mistakes. It was a familiar feeling, similar to the laughter he had experienced in school. Despite these challenges, Elias never gave up. He loved the piano too much to be discouraged. He would stay after class, practicing the pieces slowly, note by note. His teachers began to notice his persistence. While his classmates sometimes saw only mistakes, his teacher saw determination, focus, and a deep love for music. She realized that Elias wasn't just struggling, he was learning in his own unique way. What made Elias special was his remarkable ability to remember songs. Once he heard a tune, he could replicate it almost perfectly on the piano. One afternoon, the teacher played a simple melody for the class. Elias closed his eyes, listening intently. When it was his turn, he played the melody flawlessly, with all the nuances and emotion. Other children were stunned. They had never expected that the boy who often fell behind could play like that. Some of the whispers turned into quiet admiration, though it took time for everyone to adjust their perception. Elias began to understand that music was a language he could speak fluently, even if words sometimes failed him. He spent hours experimenting, pressing keys in patterns that produced surprising harmonies. Sometimes he would play a piece softly, almost whispering the notes, and other times he would pound on the keys with strong, confident movements. Each attempt revealed a new side of his talent. His parents recorded some of these sessions, amazed at how a boy who had once struggled to tie his shoes could now create such beautiful sound. School life continued to challenge Elias in different ways. Other children didn't always understand his abilities. Some still laughed when he stumbled in the hallway or struggled to answer questions in class. But slowly a few classmates began to notice the music. During music lessons, some of them would watch in awe as Elias played a tune from memory, something they couldn't do themselves. The whispers of doubt began to change into words of encouragement, though it was a gradual process. Elias's growing confidence in music started to spill over into other parts of his life. He began to speak more clearly, moving his hands and body with more assurance. He even joined the school choir, not to sing perfectly, but to experience music in another form. Though he sometimes got the words wrong or sang out of rhythm, his enthusiasm was contagious. Teachers and students alike began to see that Elias's differences were not limitations. They were part of what made him extraordinary. His parents also sought guidance from music mentors outside of school. They found a pianist named Mr. Nolan, an older man who had spent decades performing and teaching. Mr. Nolan had a keen eye for talent, and he quickly saw the potential in Elias. He was patient, kind, and encouraging, never focusing on the boy's mistakes. Instead, he celebrated small successes and emphasized the joy of music. Under Mr. Nolan's guidance, Elias began to learn new techniques, ways to structure melodies, and ways to express emotions through sound. Practicing with Mr. Nolan was both exciting and challenging. Elias learned to play longer pieces, sometimes memorizing entire compositions after hearing them only once. He struggled at times, hitting wrong notes or losing the rhythm, but Mr. Nolan reminded him that every mistake was a step forward. "Music is about heart, not perfection," he would say. These words became a mantra for Elias. He began to see that his passion mattered more than what others thought, that his dedication could outshine any laughter or doubt. Elias's performances began to change how others saw him. During small recitals at Mr. Nolan's studio, parents, friends, and teachers would come to watch. When Elias sat at the piano, there was often a quiet tension in the room. People wondered if he would play correctly or stumble, but as soon as his fingers touched the keys, that tension vanished. The melodies flowed naturally, sometimes gentle and soothing, sometimes strong and vibrant. People were amazed at the depth of emotion that came from such a young boy. At home, Elias's parents continued to support him with unwavering love. They created a small corner in the living room just for him, with a lamp, a music stand, and the piano he had fallen in love with years ago. He would spend hours there, practicing, experimenting, and losing himself in the music. On quiet nights, his parents would sit nearby, listening, feeling proud and moved by the talent and passion their son displayed. The piano had become more than an instrument. It was a source of joy, confidence, and identity. Elias's relationship with other children was slowly changing as well. Some classmates who had once laughed began to ask him questions about music. They wanted to know how he remembered songs, how he could play by ear, and how he expressed feelings through the piano. Elias didn't always answer with words, but he would play a melody in response, sharing his thoughts through music. Slowly, he gained friends who appreciated him for who he was, not for how he was different. Even so, there were still challenges. Competitions and school events sometimes felt unfair. Judges and organizers were not always prepared to see a child with Down syndrome perform. Elias faced skepticism and doubt from strangers who didn't yet understand his talent. These moments could be discouraging, but he learned resilience. Every performance, no matter how small, was an opportunity to show his abilities and to teach others that potential comes in many forms. Through it all, Elias never lost his sense of wonder. He noticed the small things in life, The rustle of leaves in the wind, the gentle drip of rain from the roof, the distant hum of traffic, and tried to turn them into music. He learned that inspiration could come from anywhere, that even the ordinary could become extraordinary when expressed through his piano. This sensitivity, combined with his natural gift, made his music deeply moving. One day during a music class recital, Elias surprised everyone. The teacher played a new piece and asked the students to try it themselves. Elias, who had struggled with rhythm in the past, played the tune almost perfectly after listening just once. The other children stared in disbelief. The boy who had once been laughed at for his mistakes now played with skill and emotion, far beyond what anyone had expected. For the first time, some of his classmates realized that Elias's talent was not just good, it was extraordinary. The applause that followed was new for Elias. He had heard clapping before, but this was different. It was not pity and it was not polite. It was genuine appreciation. For the first time, he felt the joy of being recognized for what he could do, rather than being reminded of what he couldn't. It was a small moment, but it marked the beginning of a change in how he was perceived by the people around him. Elias's journey in music was far from over, but part 2 of his story showed something important. Talent combined with patience, love and determination could overcome even the harshest judgments. He learned to focus on his strengths, to practice diligently, and to express his emotions through every note he played. The laughter of the past still existed, but it no longer defined him. He was learning that the world could be transformed, not by others' opinions, but by the courage to follow his own passion. By the end of this period, Elias had grown in confidence, skill, and spirit. The piano was no longer just a curious object in the living room. It had become a part of him, a way to connect with others and a bridge to a future full of possibilities. The boy who had once faced laughter and doubt was now creating moments of beauty that left listeners amazed. Every melody was a step forward, a note of hope, and a testament to the power of persistence and love. Elias's story continued to unfold, and while challenges remained, he had already proven something remarkable. Through music, he was learning to communicate, to express, and to inspire. The world was beginning to see him not for his differences, but for the extraordinary talent, heart, and determination that lived within him. As Elias grew older, his piano skills became more advanced, and people began to notice his talent more and more. Yet, with every step forward, he faced new challenges. Not everyone understood his abilities. Some teachers and even strangers doubted what a boy with Down syndrome could achieve. They looked at him with skepticism, sometimes questioning whether he could succeed in more formal music settings or competitions. At school, the whispers continued. Some children still laughed at him when he stumbled in class or spoke slowly. Others were curious but unsure how to treat him. It was a constant reminder that no matter how talented he became, the world still had a way of judging people by what they could not see. Elias, however, had grown stronger. His love for music gave him a shield against the negativity. When he sat at the piano, nothing else mattered. The keys spoke a language he understood better than words, and each melody became a statement of his identity. Elias's parents understood the importance of guidance during this time. They wanted him to learn not just music, but confidence, patience, and perseverance. They found a mentor named Mr. Nolan, an experienced pianist who had performed in countless concerts and taught hundreds of students. Mr. Nolan could see Elias's extraordinary potential immediately. He was patient and kind, knowing how to encourage a child without overwhelming him. The first lessons with Mr. Nolan were both exciting and challenging. Elias had to learn new techniques, including finger placement, timing, and expression. At first, it was difficult. His hands would slip. He would hit wrong notes or forget parts of a melody. Some days he became frustrated and even considered giving up, but Mr. Nolan encouraged him gently, reminding him that every mistake was part of the learning process. Music is about heart, not perfection, he would say, and those words stuck with Elias. Over time, Elias began to improve. He could play longer and more complex pieces, and he started to express emotion through his music in a way that went beyond technique. His melodies began to tell stories. Sometimes they were joyful and light, reflecting the happiness he felt at home. Other times they were deep and moving, conveying frustration, determination, or hope. People who listened closely could feel the emotions in each note, even if they didn't know the boy personally. Elias's schoolmates began to notice a change. Some who had once laughed were now watching quietly, fascinated by his music. They didn't always understand the technical aspects, but they could feel the beauty and emotion in what he played. Slowly, the laughter that had followed him for years began to fade. In its place was curiosity and, in some cases, admiration. Elias was proving that talent could speak louder than judgment. Outside of school, Elias's parents continued to support him in every way possible. They made sure he had time to practice at home, encouraged him to perform for small gatherings, and celebrated every milestone, no matter how small. They understood that the world might not always be welcoming, but they could create a safe space where he could grow. The piano became not only a source of joy but also a place of refuge, a place where he could express feelings he could not yet put into words. Elias's growing reputation as a talented pianist reached beyond his immediate circle. Some local music teachers and event organizers became aware of him and started inviting him to small concerts and recitals. At first, Elias was nervous. Performing in front of strangers was intimidating, especially when he had experienced laughter and doubt before. But once he placed his fingers on the keys, the nerves melted away. Music had become his voice, and he realized that he could communicate more through melodies than through speech alone. Each public performance was a learning experience. He discovered how to project emotion, maintain focus, and connect with the audience. He also learned to handle mistakes gracefully. Sometimes he would miss a note or lose rhythm, but he never stopped playing. Instead, he adjusted and continued, teaching those watching an important lesson. Resilience and dedication matter more than perfection. Despite these successes, Elias still faced prejudice. Some competitions were difficult to enter because organizers did not expect a child with Down syndrome to perform at a high level. Some teachers doubted his ability to master difficult pieces or keep up with other students. Even well-meaning people sometimes treated him differently, focusing on his challenges rather than his talent. These moments were frustrating, but Elias and his family had learned to rise above them. They understood that every challenge was an opportunity to demonstrate his true abilities. Through it all, Elias never lost his love for music. He spent hours experimenting, finding new ways to express feelings and creating his own compositions. He noticed sounds that others overlooked, the rhythm of raindrops, the wind moving through the trees, even the hum of machines, and tried to turn them into melodies. These observations made his music unique. People who listened could sense something special, a depth of perception that came from seeing the world differently. Elias also learned to support others. He encouraged younger students in his music classes, showing patience and kindness, understanding how it felt to struggle. He became a quiet inspiration to those around him, demonstrating that determination and passion could overcome obstacles. The boy who had once been laughed at for his differences was now helping others discover their own potential. One day, a significant opportunity arose. The school announced a local music competition, inviting children from neighboring towns. Elias's parents encouraged him to participate, despite his initial nervousness. They knew this was more than just a contest. It was a chance to show his talent to a wider audience and to challenge the expectations of those who doubted him. Elias practiced diligently for weeks, memorizing every note, perfecting his expression, and rehearsing until he felt confident. On the day of the competition, the auditorium was filled with children, parents, and judges. Elias felt a familiar mix of excitement and nerves. Some of the other participants looked at him skeptically, not expecting much from a boy with Down syndrome. But as soon as Elias sat at the piano and began to play, all doubt disappeared. The notes flowed effortlessly, carrying emotion and skill that surprised everyone. His performance was both precise and expressive, capturing the attention of every listener. By the time he finished, the audience was silent for a moment, processing what they had just witnessed. Then came applause, genuine, enthusiastic, and full of admiration. The judges were impressed, not only by his technical skill but also by the way he conveyed emotion through his music. Elias had faced skepticism and doubt head-on, and had transformed it into a powerful performance. This moment was more than just a victory in a competition. It was a turning point. Elias realized that the laughter and doubt he had faced throughout his life did not define him. His talent, hard work, and passion for music spoke louder than anyone's skepticism. He began to understand that the world could be changed, one person at a time by showing what he was capable of. After the competition, invitations began to arrive for more performances. Schools, community centers, and local events wanted Elias to play. Each opportunity helped him gain confidence and experience. He learned how to perform in front of larger audiences, how to manage nerves, and how to connect with people through music. His reputation grew, and people who had doubted him began to see him in a new light. Through all of this, Elias remained humble and focused on the joy of playing. He did not seek fame or praise. He simply loved creating music. His parents continued to nurture his talent with patience and encouragement, understanding that the most important thing was that Elias expressed himself fully and authentically. The piano remained a safe space, a friend that listened without judgment and gave him the freedom to explore his world. Elias's story began to inspire others too. Teachers and students who had once doubted him started to see the value of patience, encouragement, and believing in potential that may not be immediately visible. His journey became a lesson in resilience, reminding people that every individual has unique gifts and that differences do not mean limitations. By the end of this period in his life, Elias had faced prejudice, skepticism, and doubt, but he had also discovered his own strength, talent, and resilience. The boy who had once struggled to keep up in school and faced laughter and ridicule had become a confident pianist, capable of expressing himself and inspiring others. Each note he played told a story, not just of his talent, but of his courage, perseverance, and unwavering love for music. Elias's journey was far from over, but the foundation had been set. He had learned that skill, patience, and passion could overcome even the harshest judgment. The laughter that had once followed him was now replaced with admiration, curiosity, and respect. Through music, Elias was finding his place in the world, one melody at a time and leaving a trail of inspiration wherever he went. Elias's talent continued to grow, and with it, the opportunities to share his music with a wider audience. One day, his parents received an invitation for him to perform at a charity concert in the city. It was a big event, with dozens of performers and an audience filled with people who had never seen Elias play before. For the first time, he would perform in front of strangers on a stage much larger than any he had encountered before. The idea of performing in such a large venue made Elias nervous. He had done small recitals and competitions before, but this was different. The auditorium was huge, and the thought of so many eyes watching him made his stomach flutter. His parents reassured him, reminding him that he had faced challenges before and that the piano was his friend. They told him to focus on the music and not on the audience. Elias nodded, taking a deep breath. He knew that once he started playing, the nervousness would fade. In the days leading up to the concert, Elias practiced more than ever. He spent hours at home with his parents, watching and guiding him. He practiced each piece slowly, ensuring that every note was correct, but he also focused on the emotion behind the music. He wanted every melody to tell a story, to connect with the audience in a way that went beyond technique. The piano was no longer just an instrument, it was his voice, his way of sharing feelings he couldn't always put into words. On the morning of the concert, Elias woke early. He was quiet, focused, and a little anxious. His parents packed his things, made sure he had snacks, and reminded him of all the times he had succeeded before. They told him to remember that the music came from his heart, and that was what would make it special. Elias smiled softly, feeling the reassurance of their love and support. When they arrived at the venue, Elias was awestruck by the size of the auditorium. Rows of chairs stretched far back and bright lights shone down on the stage. Performers were warming up, moving through their routines and testing instruments. The noise and energy were overwhelming at first, but Elias found comfort in seeing the piano on stage, familiar and waiting for him. He approached it slowly, feeling the smooth keys beneath his fingers. The world outside seemed to fade, and he focused on the music that had been his companion for so many years. The concert began, and performers took their turns. Some were professional musicians, others were students. Each act was met with polite applause, but Elias noticed that the audience didn't seem fully engaged. He could feel the anticipation building in the room, the expectation for something remarkable. When it was finally his turn, he took a deep breath and walked to the stage, feeling the eyes of everyone on him. For a moment, Elias hesitated, feeling the weight of the audience's gaze. He thought of the laughter he had faced in the past, the doubts of teachers and strangers, and the teasing from other children. But he also thought of his parents, Mr. Nolan, and the countless hours of practice. He remembered the joy of discovering a new melody, the thrill of creating music, and the power of expressing himself. With that in mind, he sat down at the piano, placed his fingers on the keys, and began to play. The first notes were soft, delicate, and hesitant, but as Elias became immersed in the music, the melody grew stronger, more confident. The audience listened in silence, captivated by the depth of emotion in each note. Elias's playing was not just about accuracy, it was about feeling. Each chord, each transition told a story. The music conveyed joy, sadness, hope, and determination all at once. People leaned forward, mesmerized by the boy who was transforming the stage into a world of sound. As Elias continued, the audience's reaction shifted. Some gasped quietly, amazed at the complexity and beauty of what he was playing. Others whispered to each other, surprised that someone so young with Down syndrome could perform with such skill and emotion. The room, once filled with polite curiosity, was now silent in awe. Elias didn't notice the audience. He was lost in the music, his heart guiding his fingers across the keys. Every note reflected years of practice, patience, and perseverance. When he reached the middle of his performance, Elias began to play a piece he had composed himself. The melody was gentle at first, almost like a whisper, and then grew into something bold and full of life. The audience was completely captivated. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Others leaned forward, unable to look away. Every person in the room could feel the emotion behind each note. The boy who had once faced laughter and doubt was now commanding the attention and admiration of everyone around him. By the time Elias finished, there was a brief, stunned silence. The audience sat frozen for a moment, processing the experience they had just witnessed. Then one by one, applause erupted. It started quietly but quickly grew into a standing ovation. People were clapping, cheering, and some were even crying. The music had touched them in a way they did not expect. Elias sat at the piano smiling softly, feeling a mixture of relief, joy, and pride. He had shared his heart through music, and the world had listened. After the performance, many people came up to Elias and his parents. They praised his talent, asked how he had learned to play so beautifully, and expressed their admiration for his determination. Some admitted that they had doubted him at first, but now they were completely amazed. For Elias, this was more than just recognition. It was validation of the hard work, patience, and love that had carried him through years of challenges. His parents were overwhelmed with pride. They had supported Elias through every struggle, celebrated every success, and now they were witnessing the result. They held his hands, hugged him tightly, and told him how proud they were. Elias smiled, feeling the warmth of their love, knowing that they had always believed in him, even when the world did not. The concert became a turning point for Elias. His performance was shared with others, spreading his story beyond the immediate audience. People were inspired by his talent, perseverance, and the way he had overcome doubt and laughter to shine on stage. For the first time, Elias realized that his music could do more than express his feelings. It could inspire others, change perceptions, and leave a lasting impact. In the days following the concert, Elias received invitations to perform at more events. Schools, community centers, and local organizations wanted him to share his music. Each performance helped him grow more confident and experienced. He learned how to manage nerves, connect with audiences, and convey emotion through every note. His music became not just a talent, but a bridge to understanding and connection. Elias also began to inspire others beyond music. Teachers, students, and parents who had once doubted or underestimated him started to see the importance of patience, encouragement, and believing in potential. His story became a lesson in resilience, showing that talent and determination can overcome obstacles, and that differences do not limit what a person can achieve. Through all of this, Elias remained humble and focused on his love for music. He did not seek fame or praise. For him, the joy came from creating, expressing, and connecting through melodies. The piano remained his companion, a friend that understood him in ways words could not. It had been his refuge, his teacher, and now his voice in the world. By the end of this period in his life, Elias had experienced a transformation. The boy who had once faced laughter, doubt, and skepticism had become a performer who left audiences speechless. His music spoke louder than prejudice, stronger than doubt, and more beautifully than anyone could have imagined. Every performance was a reminder that patience, love, and perseverance could overcome even the toughest obstacles. Elias's journey on stage was just beginning, but Part 4 showed the power of belief and dedication. He had learned that the world could be moved by talent, courage, and the willingness to share one's heart. The laughter of the past no longer held power over him. He had discovered that his music could inspire, connect, and leave a lasting impression. And as Elias continued to play, he was not only growing as a pianist but also teaching the world a lesson in resilience, hope, and the extraordinary potential that exists within every person. After the city concert, Elias's life began to change in ways he had never imagined. His music had touched people deeply, and word of his talent spread beyond his small town. Invitations arrived from schools, community centers, and local organizations. Everyone wanted to hear the boy who could transform a piano into a voice of hope and emotion. For Elias, this was both exciting and overwhelming, but he was ready. At home, his parents helped him prepare for each new opportunity. They focused not on perfection, but on the joy of performing. "Remember, Elias," his mother would say, "the music comes from your heart. That is what people will feel." His father added, "Play for yourself first, and the rest will follow." These simple words became a guiding principle for Elias. He practiced diligently, but always with the goal of expressing his feelings, not just playing the right notes. As Elias performed in more places, he noticed how music could bring people together. At schools, children who had once struggled with confidence were inspired by him. Teachers saw firsthand that patience, encouragement, and belief in a student could unlock incredible potential. Parents were moved by the dedication of a boy who had faced so many challenges yet never gave up. Elias's story began to spread not just as a tale of talent, but as an example of courage, determination, and the power of love and support. One afternoon, Elias was invited to perform at a larger city event, featuring several talented musicians. This time the stage was even bigger and the audience even larger. As he approached the piano, a familiar nervousness returned. He remembered the laughter he had faced in the past, the doubts of teachers and the skepticism of strangers. For a brief moment he wondered if he could do it. Then he placed his hands on the keys and let the music flow. From the first note, Elias captivated the audience. His fingers danced over the keys with precision and emotion. The melodies he created were not just technically impressive, they told a story. Some notes were joyful, some sorrowful, some full of hope. Every person listening could feel the emotions he was expressing. People leaned forward, closed their eyes, and let the music wash over them. The boy who had once been laughed at had become a source of inspiration and awe. By the end of the performance, the audience erupted in applause. Standing ovations, cheers, and even tears were everywhere. Elias smiled softly, feeling proud but also grateful. He realized that all the years of practice, patience, and perseverance had led to this moment. He had not only proven his own abilities, but he had also shown the world that differences do not limit potential. Talent and heart can shine through any obstacle. After the performance, many people approached Elias and his parents. Some wanted to praise him. Others wanted to learn how he had overcome challenges. They asked about his practice, his approach to music, and how he stayed confident despite setbacks. Elias listened quietly, sometimes speaking, sometimes simply smiling and letting his music answer. His story was spreading, and it was inspiring countless others to believe in themselves and the power of perseverance. Elias's success also gave him new opportunities to mentor younger children. He visited schools and music programs, showing other students that passion and dedication could overcome difficulties. Children with learning challenges or disabilities looked up to him, seeing that it was possible to achieve greatness despite obstacles. Elias shared simple advice: practice every day, don't worry about mistakes, and always play from your heart. His words, combined with his example, encouraged many to pursue their own passions with confidence. At home, Elias's family continued to celebrate every milestone, no matter how big or small. They recorded his performances, saved letters of encouragement from audiences, and encouraged him to reflect on how far he had come. Elias began to understand the impact of his journey. His music was not only a personal achievement, but also a way to inspire others and change perceptions about what children with Down syndrome could do. Through all the attention and opportunities, Elias remained humble. He did not seek fame or recognition. What mattered to him was the joy of playing, the connection he could create through music, and the chance to show others that differences could be strengths. Each time he performed, he focused on the story he wanted to tell, the emotion he wanted to share, and the people he wanted to touch. His passion and authenticity resonated deeply with everyone who listened. Elias also learned to handle challenges gracefully. Not every performance was perfect. Sometimes he would make mistakes, lose rhythm, or feel nervous. But he learned that mistakes did not define him. Each misstep was a chance to adjust, to learn, and to grow. His parents and Mr. Nolan reminded him that the heart behind the music mattered more than perfection. These lessons gave Elias confidence to face every audience, no matter the size or expectation. Over time, Elias's influence grew beyond music. People admired his courage, his perseverance, and his ability to turn adversity into inspiration. Teachers used his story to teach students about patience and understanding. Parents shared his journey with others as an example of love and support making a difference. Children who had once struggled to believe in themselves found hope in Elias's achievements. His music had become a bridge, connecting hearts and minds in ways words alone could not. Elias's story also taught the world about the importance of inclusion. Schools and communities began to recognize the value of nurturing talents in every child, regardless of differences. Music programs became more supportive and flexible, inspired by the realization that every child could shine if given the right encouragement. Elias's journey was proof that potential exists in everyone, waiting for someone to believe and support it. Through it all, Elias never lost his love for simple moments. He would often sit quietly at home, playing melodies he had created, humming softly to himself. Sometimes he would watch the sunlight dance through the windows, noticing the rhythm of leaves in the breeze, and turn it into music. These quiet moments reminded him why he loved music so much. Not for applause or recognition, but for the joy, expression, and connection it brought into his life. As Elias matured, he began to compose more of his own music. Each piece reflected his experiences, emotions, and observations of the world around him. He experimented with melodies, harmonies, and rhythms, creating music that was uniquely his own. His compositions were not just technically impressive. They were full of heart, capturing the beauty, struggles, and triumphs of his journey. Audiences were captivated, not only by his skill but also by the stories his music told. Elias's performances and compositions became a symbol of hope and resilience. People who had doubted him were now inspired by him. Children who had once been laughed at found courage in his example. Parents learned the power of patience, love, and encouragement. Teachers discovered the importance of believing in every student. Elias's music and story created ripples that extended far beyond the notes he played, touching lives in ways he could never have imagined as a small child. Through all of this, Elias remained grounded. He continued to practice, to explore new melodies, and to share his music with others. He knew that his journey was ongoing, that there were always new challenges and opportunities ahead. But he also knew that he had already achieved something remarkable. He had turned laughter, doubt, and adversity into music, inspiration, and hope. Looking back, Elias could see how far he had come. From the boy who had been laughed at for his differences, who struggled to keep up with others in school, to the pianist who left audiences speechless, his journey was a testament to the power of love, patience, determination, and belief in oneself. Every note he played told a story of resilience, courage, and hope. Elias's story became more than just his own. It was a message to the world that differences do not define a person, that talent can emerge in unexpected ways, and that every individual has the potential to inspire. His music reminded people that the heart behind the performance matters more than perfection, and that perseverance and passion can overcome obstacles that seem impossible. In the end, Elias was not just a talented pianist. He was a symbol of hope. He showed that laughter and doubt could be transformed into something beautiful. He taught the world that challenges do not limit potential, that encouragement and love can unlock hidden abilities, and that one person's determination can inspire countless others. Through music, Elias had found his voice, his purpose, and his place in the world. And as he continued to play, creating melodies that touched hearts and minds, Elias knew that his journey was far from over. There were more songs to compose, more stages to perform on, and more people to inspire. But one thing was certain: The boy who had once faced laughter and doubt had become a young man whose music left everyone speechless, proving that true talent and determination can shine brighter than any obstacle.